You don't fall in love with a fighter. You fall in love with the man who is trying to stop being one. That distinction matters. It is the only thing that lets you sleep at night in the beginning, and it is the thing that destroys you in the end. Because you built a life on the difference between what a man is and what a man is trying to become. And the underground doesn't care about the difference. The underground only cares about what a man does when the lights go out and the door closes and there is nothing left between him and another man except the specific question of who is willing to go further. Ryo Tanaka is always willing to go further. That is both why you love him and why you die at 31, leaving a daughter who will grow up with his jaw and your eyes and a photograph on the mantle that she will ask about when she is old enough to ask. But we begin before the end. We always begin before the end. You move to Osaka at 24 because your company transfers you and because your life in Seattle has the specific suffocation of something that was built correctly and fits wrong at a data analyst position. A clean apartment in Capitol Hill. A relationship that ended so gently both of you kept being polite about it for 3 months after it was over. You land in Osaka in September and the city hits you immediately with its specific energy, louder than Tokyo, hungrier, the specific commerce and noise of a city that has always been about transactions and does not apologize for it. You find an apartment in Namba, you start work. You build the expat routine. Konbini meals, wrong train lines, the slow accumulation of Japanese competence that lets you order food and buy groceries and negotiate with your landlord without needing your phone. You are fine. You are building fine. Fine is not enough for you, and you know it. Fine is what you had in Seattle. Fine is the suffocation with better lighting. You meet him in October. You meet Ryo Tanaka at a gym in Shinsaibashi. Not the underground. Not yet. This is the surface version, a legitimate boxing gym above a convenience store on a side street 2 blocks from the Dotonbori Canal. You join for the fitness classes. He is there when you walk in on a Thursday evening, working a heavy bag in the corner with the focused economy of someone who has been hitting things for so long that the movement has become language rather than effort. He is 28. 5'11", tall for a Japanese man of his generation. Lean in the way of someone who has burned every unnecessary thing off his frame through years off specific work. Dark hair kept short. A face that has been hit enough times that there is a slight asymmetry to his features. Not disfiguring, just evidence. A jawline that has been tested. Knuckles that have a specific topography. Eyes that are very dark and very calm in the specific way of someone who has learned to be calm because the alternative costs too much. He looks at you when you come in. Not the look you're used to from men in gyms, the assessing, slightly competitive look that men in fitness spaces use. He looks at you the way people look at something that has arrived unexpectedly and requires repositioning of the furniture. You look back because you are an American woman who spent 2 years in Seattle being politely not quite looked at, and you have decided that Japan is going to be different. He goes back to the bag. You go to your class. The class is fine. You watch him work the bag through the mirror for 45 minutes and you tell yourself you are not doing this. You are absolutely doing this. His name you get from the front desk. His story you get in pieces over the following 3 weeks of showing up to the Thursday class because you have decided the Thursday class is your favorite class and it has nothing to do with the man in the corner. Ryo Tanaka. Former competitive kickboxer, regional champion at 22, national contender at 24. He quit the competitive circuit at 25. He now trains at this gym and works as a personal trainer 3 days a week. He's been training here for 3 years. The guy at the front desk, a cheerful 19-year-old named Soda, tells you all of this in approximately 4 minutes because you asked in Japanese, which is apparently sufficient to unlock full biographies of the other patrons. What Soda does not tell you, because Soda doesn't know, or knows and has decided it's not his to tell, why Ryo quit the competitive circuit at 25, 1 year before his national title shot. Why, with the frame and the skill and the record, he is working as a personal trainer in a gym above a convenience store instead of fighting in sanctioned bouts for real money. Why, on certain nights, he leaves the gym at 10 p.m. and doesn't come back until the first class the following morning, and Soda has learned not to ask because Ryo's face on those mornings has a quality that makes questions feel like bad ideas. You will find out why. You will wish, for approximately 48 hours after you find out, that you hadn't. Then you will decide to stay anyway. And that decision is where the real story begins. You talk for the first time properly in week 4. You stay late after class, working the bag because you've discovered you are better at hitting things than you expected, and it does something for the specific frustration of data analysis work that nothing else has managed. He is still in the corner. You are working the bag badly, wrong weight distribution, shoulders too high, effort without architecture. He watches you for about 3 minutes. Then he says, in English, rougher than Kenji's English, less formal, English learned from American action movies and mixed martial arts broadcasts rather than textbooks. Your right hand is going to hurt you before it hurts anything else. You say, is that an offer to fix it? He says, it's an observation. You say, I'm open to observation becoming instruction. He looks at you for a moment with those very calm, very dark eyes. Then he comes over and adjusts your stance without asking permission, which in any other context would be intrusive, and in this context is the most useful thing anyone has done for you physically in 2 years. His hands on your shoulders, repositioning. His voice behind you, brief, precise instructions. No performance. No flirtation. Just the specific expertise of someone who knows exactly what a body needs to do and is telling you. You throw a combination. It lands differently, better, like the bag noticed. He says, again. You throw it again. He says, again. By the 20th repetition, your shoulders are burning, and the combination is clean, and something has shifted in the room that neither of you acknowledges yet. You say, thank you. He says, don't raise your shoulders. You go home, and you think about this for approximately 4 hours longer than is reasonable. 3 months pass. You fall in love the way you fall in love when you are paying close attention, not suddenly, not dramatically, but with the accumulating weight of specific things that build a case, so thorough you cannot argue with it. The way he listens, not casually, not waiting for his turn, actually listening, the way people listen when they have learned that careless attention costs you. The way he moves through Osaka, knowing the city the way people know things that were worked into them, every ramen shop and backstreet, and which konbini has the best onigiri at 2 a.m., the city as a body he has lived in so long it moves with him. The way he handles his hands off the bag, carefully, consciously, the specific care off someone who knows what their hands can do and has decided that the knowledge carries responsibility. He takes you to dinner in Fukushima, the restaurant district across the river, on a Friday evening that started as we should get food after training and becomes 3 hours at a counter bar that has 12 seats and a chef who knows him and makes something extraordinary with mackerel that you'll try to describe to your mother on the phone later and fail. He talks about Osaka, the way people talk about places that made them. He asks about Seattle with the genuine curiosity of someone who has never left Japan and finds other countries both interesting and vaguely implausible. You tell him about the polite relationship that ended so gently you had to check. He laughs, a real laugh, not a polite one, the specific laugh of someone recognizing something true. You file that laugh somewhere safe. You say, you're not what I expected. He says, what did you expect? You say, I don't know. Something simpler. He looks at you across the counter with those dark, calm eyes. He says, I'm trying to be simpler. You don't ask what he means. Not yet. You file it with the laugh. You are very good at filing things and terrible at leaving them unfiled. You find out in January. Not from him. He will tell you later that he was planning to tell you himself. Planning the specific sentence, the specific moment, the way he plans everything, with a precision that suggests he has rehearsed it past the point of spontaneity. But you find out before he tells you, which changes the shape of the conversation. You find out because you follow him, not obsessively. You followed him once, on a Thursday night when he left the gym at 10 with a different quality of stillness than his usual stillness, more contained, more prepared, the stillness of someone tuning an instrument before a performance. You followed because you have been a data analyst for 4 years and data analysts notice patterns, and the pattern of his Thursday nights has been building a shape you haven't wanted to name. You follow him across Namba, down 3 increasingly narrow streets, into a warehouse district near the river where the buildings are old and the lights are specific. The Kindhoff lights that are inside windows rather than on them, designed to indicate activity without advertising it. He goes into a building on a dead-end street. A man at the door knows him by the specific nod of men who share a context they don't announce. You wait 20 minutes. Then you find a way in. What you find inside? A basement space. Roughly 40 feet by 60. Concrete floor, concrete walls, steel support columns. Caged lights above. Standing room only. Perhaps 60 people arranged around a cleared space in the center. The crowd, men mostly, the specific economic mix of the Japanese underground. Salarymen in loosened ties beside men whose occupation is less clearly named, the common denominator being money in hand, and the specific appetite for things that do not happen in sanctioned spaces. In the center, a fight. No ring, no ropes, no referee. Two men in the cleared space, and one of them is Rio, and what Rio is doing to the other man is not what you watched him do to the heavy bag in the gym. What he is doing is methodical, controlled, devastating, the application of years-off trained knowledge to the specific project of ending another person's ability to continue. The other man goes down in the 4th minute. He does not get up immediately. The room is loud. Rio stands over him, not celebrating, not performing, just standing. His face in the aftermath carries the same specific quality it has on those mornings at the gym. The thing that makes questions feel like bad ideas. You stand in the back of the room with 60 strangers watching the man you are in love with, and you feel 3 things simultaneously. Dread, because you understand now what the thing you've been filing means. Recognition, because the precision you have been watching for 3 months has a context now. And beneath both of those, the thing you will not admit for another week, that you are not leaving. That you have never once in your life made the safe choice, and you are not starting tonight. You leave before he sees you. He calls the next morning. He says, "I need to tell you something." You say, "I know." Silence. He says, "How long?" You say, "Last night." The silence is its own information. Then, "I'm coming over." He tells you at your kitchen table in Namba, the underground fighting circuit, Osaka-based, with connections in Kobe and Nagoya. An official name. No sanctioned structure. Organized by a man named Takahashi, a former promoter who moved from legitimate boxing into something more profitable when he discovered that the specific appetite for unsanctioned violence was not only large but reliable. The fights happen twice monthly. The money is real. The rules are minimal. He started fighting it at 25. The same year, he quit the competitive circuit. Heck with the circuit because the circuit had rules, and the rules were fine when he was winning, but when he was told, once by a manager he trusted, to lose a specific fight for a specific payment, he refused. He refused and won the fight, and the manager's investors lost money, and the retaliation was specific and organized and ended his sanctioned career permanently. He went to Takahashi because Takahashi offered a circuit with no rules except the ones the fighters make themselves. Which sounds like freedom. Which is not freedom. He has been fighting the underground for 3 years. He is, by any measure, the best fighter in it. He makes enough to live. He has been trying for the past year to save enough to stop. The number keeps moving because Takahashi keeps offering more, and more is always harder to walk away from than less. He tells you all of this at your kitchen table with his hands flat on the surface and his dark eyes on yours. Then he says, "I understand if you don't want this." You look at him for a long time. Then you say, "I don't want this. I want you to get out." He says, "I'm trying." You say, "How long?" He says, 6 months. Maybe 8. You say, "That is not a plan. That is a hope." He is quiet. You say, "I need a plan. Give me a number." A real number. What do you need to walk away? He tells you the number. It is larger than you expected and smaller than you feared. You say, 6 months. I'll help you build it. But 6 months is the hard limit. He looks at you across the table. He says, "You should know what this means." "What'd I do in that room?" You say, "I watched." "I know." He says, "Watching is not knowing." You say, "Then tell me what I'm missing." He is quiet for a long time. Then he says, "I have hurt people." "Badly." "Some of them I think about." You say, "Have you killed anyone?" He says, "No." He says it with the specific weight of someone who knows the answer could have been different. You say, 6 months. We build the number. You get out. He nods. He does not look like a man who believes it will be that clean. He is correct. The 6 months. This is the year nobody prepares you for. You learn to live inside a life with a specific and regular terror in it. Not the ambient fear of general danger, but the scheduled fear of a man you love going into a basement twice a month and doing something that could kill him or could be killing him in increments too slow to measure. You do not go again after the first time. This is a line you draw because you understand quickly that watching makes you complicit in a way you're not prepared to be, and complicitis, its own kind of damage. But you know when he's going. You always know. There's a quality of preparation in him in those days. A gathering, a tuning, the specific stillness that has a different texture than his ordinary stillness. He eats earlier. He goes quiet in a way that is not ordinary quiet. He kisses you before he leaves with the concentration of someone noting the specific details of something they want to remember accurately. You make him come back to you. This is the deal you make that neither of you states out loud. He does what he does, he comes back to you. And when he comes back, knuckles split, eyes with that specific morning quality, body carrying the weight of what it's done. You are there. You do not ask. You make tea. You sit beside him. You are the room he comes back to, and you have decided this is worth it for 6 months, and you're going to hold that decision with both hands. Month 3. The number is getting closer. He takes a fight he wouldn't have taken at the beginning, higher stakes, higher payment, a man from a Kobe circuit with a different Kindoff record. He comes back from that fight with 2 cracked ribs and something in his left eye that takes 3 weeks to fully clear, and you sit beside him at 3 a.m., and you say nothing because there is nothing to say that isn't just, I need this to be over. Month 4. You find out you are pregnant. You tell him on a Sunday morning in the garden of a small restaurant in Fukushima, the same district where you ate mackerel on the first dinner, because you needed to tell him somewhere that was not the apartment, somewhere that was neutral and public and could contain whatever the next hour required containing. He goes completely still. Not the professional stillness. The stunned stillness of a man whose system does not have an immediate protocol for joy. He looks at you for a long time. Then he says, How far? You say, 7 weeks. He takes both your hands across the table. He does not speak for a while. Then, I'm done. You say, The number, he says, I'm done. The number doesn't matter. I'm done. You look at him. He says, I'm not going to be the man who keeps doing this with a child coming. I'm not going to be that. You say, You have to tell Takahashi. He says, I'll tell him this week. You say, He won't accept it easily. He says, I know. He says, It doesn't change the decision. You believe him. You believe him completely. You have been watching this man be precise about everything for 7 months, and you believe that this decision is also precise, also complete, also made. You are right. The decision is genuine. What you don't know, what neither of you know, is that the decision is also too late. His name is Keto. You need to understand Keto before the rest of this makes sense. Keto Narahashi. 26 years old. Fighter. Ryo's closest thing to a friend in a world that does not manufacture friendship easily. They came up in the underground together. Keto had been fighting it 6 months before Ryo arrived, and Keto was the one who showed Ryo how the circuit worked, who Takahashi was, which fights to take and which to read carefully. He was smaller than Ryo, faster, with a specific chaotic energy in the ring that was the opposite of Ryo's methodical precision. They trained together. They ate together. They did not talk about what they did in the specific way that men who share a dangerous context sometimes cannot talk about it, the way soldiers do not always discuss the specific texture of combat. But they were there for each other in the way that counts. Showing up, no questions, steady. Keto had been trying to get out longer than Ryo. The difference was that Keto had debts that the circuit was managing, debts that meant Takahashi always had a reason to offer one more fight, and Keto always had a reason to take it. In Ryo's 5th month, the month after the Kobe fight, the month you find out about the pregnancy, Takahashi offers Keto a fight. A specific fight. Against a man from the Tokyo circuit named Shirai, who is larger, better funded, whose backers have placed significant money. The arrangement. Keto takes a foul in the 3rd round. Not visibly, not a pantomime. Just doesn't get up from a knockdown could have gotten up from. The payment. Enough to clear his debts and walk away. Keto tells Ryo about it. Ryo tells him, Don't do it. Not because of principle, though principle is there. Because Ryo knows Shirai's record, knows what Shirai does in rounds 1 and 2 to a fighter, who he knows is going to go down in 3. Knows that a fixed fall is not a clean business transaction. It is an invitation for a man like Shirai to do maximum damage in the first 8 minutes, because there is no reason not to. Ryo says, walk away from the fight entirely.
Disappear for a week.
I'll cover you. Kido says, the debt doesn't disappear if I walk. Takahashi calls it in. The people behind the debt are not Takahashi. Ryo says, I'll fight the debt. Let me talk to Takahashi. Kido says, you're done. You told me you're done. Don't come back in for me. They argue for 2 hours. Ryo loses the argument the way you lose arguments with men who have already decided they have no other options. Completely, and while knowing you're right. Kido takes the fight. Shirai does what Ryo said he would. In the first 8 minutes, before Kido's scheduled fall, Shirai operates with the specific efficiency of a man who knows he has been given permission. He is not fighting to win. He is punishing. There is a difference in the body language, in the target selection, in the economy of someone who has been given a window and is using every second of it. Kido goes down in the second round from a combination that has no legitimate sporting context, a sequence designed to damage, not to score, landed on a man who is carrying the weight of everything Ryo told him would happen and cannot defend against it because defending would mean fighting back, and fighting back would mean the fixed fall doesn't work and the debt stays, and the people behind the debt come for something worse. He does not get up. Not from the fall. Not from the floor. Ryo is there. Ryo is always there when Kido fights, standing at the back of the room with the specific quality of someone who cannot leave even when they know they should. He is the first person to reach Kido. He knows before anyone else says anything. The room around him continues for a moment, the specific lag of crowds who are not yet sure what they've seen, and then the room understands. 60 people in a concrete basement, and the only sound is Ryo, who has dropped to his knees beside his closest friend, and is saying his name.
Once. Twice.
The third time is not a word anymore. You are not there. You find out from him at 2 in the morning when he comes to the Namb apartment, and he is not the version of him you have been building routines around. He is something stripped down and raw and specific in the way of a person who has had something removed from them in real time and has not yet developed the scar tissue. He sits on the floor. Not the chair. The floor. You sit beside him on the floor without being asked. He says, Kido is dead.
You do not say anything.
You put your hand in his. He does not speak for a very long time. Then, I told him not to take the fight. You say, I know. He says, I should have. You say, no. He looks at you. You say, no. You told him.
He chose.
The man who killed him is Shirai, and the man who arranged it is Takahashi. Not you. He says, I could have stopped it. You say, how? He can't answer. You say, you told him. You offered. He decided. You cannot carry the decision of another man. He is quiet. Then, I'm going to kill Takahashi. You say his name. He says, I mean it. You say, I know you mean it, which is why I'm telling you no.
He looks at you.
You say, we have a daughter coming. I need you to hear that. We have a daughter coming and she needs a father who is alive and not in a cell. And Kido did not die so that you could follow him into something irreversible. He puts his face in his hands. You stay on the floor beside him for 3 hours. He does not kill Takahashi. He does something more patient and ultimately more destructive. He goes back to the circuit. This is the part you fail. Not because you don't try. You try with everything you have, which turns out to be considerable and insufficient simultaneously, which is the most devastating combination available.
He goes back to fight Shirai.
Not for Takahashi. Not for the circuit. For Kido, which means for himself, which means for the specific thing inside him that cannot close over cleanly, because there is a man walking around Osaka who killed his closest friend in a concrete basement and has been paid for it, and Ryo cannot metabolize that into acceptance, no matter how long he sits with it. You fight about this. This is the great fight of your relationship. Not loud, not violent, but real. The real version. 2 people who love each other arguing about who they get to be and what that costs the other person. You say, this is not justice. This is appetite. He says, it is both. You say, she hasn't been born yet. She needs you whole. He says, I cannot be whole while Shirai is fighting. You say, she needs alive. Alive and broken is better than what the other option looks like. He says, I'll come back. You say, Kido didn't come back. The silence after that is the worst silence of your life together.
He goes anyway.
You are 6 months pregnant when he trains for the Shirai fight. You watch him prepare from the inside of a pregnancy that is its own physical demand, which means you are managing the terror of what he's going to do and the specific bodily seriousness off-growing a person simultaneously, which is the most alone you have felt since you arrived in Japan. You go to the gym. You tell him, I need you to understand what you are asking me to hold. He comes home that night and holds you instead of training, and you lie there in the dark off the Nomb apartment, and neither of you sleeps, but neither of you speaks, and it is the most honest conversation you have without words. He fights Shirai 2 weeks later. You do not go. You sit in the apartment, and you wait, and you are very, very afraid, and you do not perform not being afraid because you are alone and there is no one to perform for. He wins. He calls you from outside the building, voice rough and tired. It's done. You say, come home. He says, coming. He comes home. He has a broken nose and 4 broken fingers and something in his face that is both finished and hollow in the way that finished things that cost too much are hollow. Hesitates at the kitchen table and you clean the fingers and he doesn't flinch because he has been trained out of flinching and you are as angry as you have ever been and as in lovey as you have ever been and those 2 things exist in you at the same time and you let them. He says, I'm done. I mean it this time. You say, I know. You say, I need you to know that I understand why you did it. And I need you to know that I will never be able to fully forgive you for it. He says, I know. He says, both of those things are fair. You finish cleaning the fingers. You go to bed. You both know it isn't over. Not because he is going back to the circuit, he isn't, because Takahashi is still there. Because, in the underground, a man who wins a fight that was supposed to be lost, a man who breaks the arrangement by coming back and dismantling the man the arrangement was built around, that man has created a problem for the people who organized the arrangement. The people behind Shirai's backers. The people behind the money. Those people do not accept losses as a closed account. Your daughter is born in April. She is small and loud, and has Rio's jaw and your eyes, and an expression of total indignation at existing that makes the midwife laugh. Rio holds her in both hands at the hospital with the careful precision of someone who has learned to calibrate force to the specific fragility of what they are holding. His face, everything he has been holding down for the previous year, released in the specific direction of this small person. He says her name, Hannah, quietly, to her face, as if introducing himself. She wraps her hand around his finger. He does not let go for 20 minutes. You watch him hold her, and you think, this is the version of him that was always there underneath everything else. This careful, precise, enormous love for something that needs him to be the best version of himself. You go home. You build the life. It is, and this is real, this is not sentimentality. It is the most ordinary and most profound months of your existence. The specific weight and smell and sound of an infant. The 2 a.m. feedings. The specific exhaustion that makes you laugh at things that aren't funny because everything else requires energy you didn't have. Rio gets up every time. Every time. He moves through the dark apartment to her with the same focused precision he brings to everything and feeds her and holds her against his shoulder and paces the kitchen in the specific pattern he has developed. 8 steps one way, turn, 8 steps back, and she falls asleep against him, and he does not put her down until she is deeply under. You watch him from the doorway sometimes. You think, this is why I stayed. This man, this life, this was always possible. You do not know that you have approximately 4 more months of this. The men come in August. Not for him.
For you.
This is the calculation the people behind Shirai's backers make. Rio Tanaka cannot be beaten cleanly. The record is clear. But a man who cannot be beaten can be made to do things by the application of pressure to the things he cannot protect with his fists. 2 men at the Namba apartment on a Tuesday afternoon when Rio is at the gym. You have Hannah. She is 4 months old. You know immediately what this is. You have always been good at pattern recognition. They do not hurt you. This is important to understand. They do not touch you. What they do is stand in your apartment and communicate, with their presence and with very specific words, exactly what happens to you and to Hannah if Rio does not come back to the circuit and does not perform the function Takahashi assigns. You call Rio. He is at the apartment in 11 minutes. He has never moved that fast in his life. The men are still there. What happens next you see from the bedroom where you have taken Hannah, you close the door but you can hear it, and then it is quiet again, and then Rio opens the bedroom door. One of the men will be in hospital for 6 weeks. The other will carry the specific evidence of that 11 minutes for the rest of his life. Rio's expression when he opens the door is the expression from the warehouse. The morning quality. The thing that makes questions feel like bad ideas. He looks at you and Hannah. He says, "Are you hurt?" You say, "No." He says, "I'm sorry." You say, "We need to leave. Tonight." He says, "I know." You don't leave. This is the thing you cannot explain to anyone who hasn't been inside it. You don't leave because leaving requires Rio to be safe enough to leave, and the men who sent to Piaplito your apartment will send more, and leaving without resolution only moves the problem. It does not close it, and Rio has decided that closing it requires one more fight, and you cannot argue him out of it because he is right, and being right does not help. You know, in this period, that the math is wrong. You know it in your body. You fight. You fight differently than before, not about whether he will go back, but about what it will cost. He says, "I'll win, and we'll be gone by November." You say, "Keto said be okay too." He has no answer to that. You begin having headaches in September. Not fight-related. Nothing to do with Rio or the circuit or any of the things you've been carrying. Headaches that come from inside the skull, with a specific quality that eventually makes you go to the doctor, and the doctor sends you to a specialist, and the specialist gives you a piece of information that rearranges every calculation in every room. An arteriovenous malformation. Present from birth. Undetected. The headaches. The first symptom of something that has been waiting, quietly, your entire life, and has decided now is when it announces itself. The prognosis. Manageable with intervention, potentially catastrophic without it. The surgery. Real, with real risk, with real recovery. You tell Rio on a Sunday morning in October. He goes completely still. Then he sits down. Then he puts his face in his hands. You say, "I need you to hear what I'm saying." He takes his face out of his hands. You say, "I have a surgery scheduled for the 14th. The doctor is good. The odds are good. But I need you to understand that I need you to be here." He says, "I'm here." You say, "Not for the fight. For me." He says, "I'm here." He cancels the fight. He sits with you every day in the 2 weeks before the surgery. He takes Hannah in the mornings so you can sleep. He makes food, badly, with the same concentrated effort he brings to everything, and you eat it even when it's wrong because the effort is what you're eating. The night before the surgery you lie in bed, and he holds you and you say, "If something happens." He says, "Nothing is going to happen." You say, "If something happens, she needs to grow up knowing her mother was not afraid." He is quiet. You say, "Tell her I chose this. The whole thing. I chose you, I chose Japan, I chose Seto stay when I could have left. I chose every single part of it. She should know that." He says, "Tell her yourself." You say, "I intend to, but in case." He holds you tighter. He says, "In case. I'll tell her." The surgery takes 4 hours. You do not wake up. Not because the surgeon failed. Because the specific malformation in the specific location decided on the table rather than before or after it. A decision your brain made that noon could have predicted from the imaging and that no one could have prevented with a different surgical approach. You are 31 years old. Hannah is 5 months old. Rio is in the waiting room with Hannah asleep against his shoulder when the surgeon comes through the door. He reads it in the surgeon's face before the words arrive. He sits down. Hannah wakes when he sits and looks at his face and does what infants do when the face they love most is doing something they cannot understand. She reaches up and puts her hand in his jaw. He holds her hand against his face for a very long time. He fights Takahashi's man in November. Not for closure. For Hana. Because the men who came to the apartment in August are still out there. Because the math that says leaving without resolution only moves the problem is still true. Because Ryo Tanaka has decided, in the specific way he decides things, completely, with his whole body, with no room left for revision, that Hana will not grow up inside the geometry of a threat. He fights in the same warehouse. Same concrete basement. Same caged lights. Takahashi's man is the best fighter in the circuit after Ryo. His name is Endo. He has never lost. The fight lasts 19 minutes. Ryo wins. The manner of winning is specific and complete, and the room is very quiet afterward in the way that rooms get quiet when something has been decided so thoroughly that there is nothing left to say. Takahashi's operation does not survive the night. The people behind the money, who have been watching what has happened to their fighters, to their circuit, to the arrangements they have made, make a calculation. This man costs more to pursue than to release. They make their calculation, and they move on to other investments. Ryo is released. He carries Hana home from his mother's apartment where he left her for the night. He walks through Namba at 3 a.m. with his daughter asleep against his shoulder, 8 steps one way, turn, 8 steps back, the kitchen pattern moved into the streets. He comes back to the apartment. He opens the door. He stands in the entrance for a moment. The apartment. Her things still there. The photograph on the mantel, the two of them in Fukushima, the mackerel dinner, the evening that started as we should get food after training. Your face in the photograph, exactly as it is, exactly as you were, the specific living quality of a face that is present and will always be past. He puts Hana down in her crib. He sits at the kitchen table. He is 31 years old, and he is out of the underground and his daughter is asleep in the next room, and you are not here. Both things are true. Both things will be true for the rest of his life. What he does with the rest of his life. He opens a gym. Small, above a convenience store, different street from the old one, new neighborhood, but the same configuration because some things he finds fit a certain way and he has no interest in pretending otherwise. He trains people. Not fighters. People. The same precise instruction he gave you on a Thursday night with your shoulders too high and your weight wrong. He is very good at it. He builds something real. Hana grows up in the gym. She is there after school most days, doing homework at the desk in the corner while her father teaches. She has his jaw and your eyes and a quality of attention that is specific and particular and recognizable to everyone who knew you, though most of them don't tell her that. She is serious and funny and quick, and she moves through the world with a directness that people respond to without knowing why. When she is old enough to ask, he tells her. Not all of it at once. In layers, as she grows into the capacity to receive them. The gym above the convenience store.
The underground. Keto.
The men in the apartment. The surgery. The sentence you asked him to deliver. Tell her I chose this. The whole thing. He tells her you were not afraid. He tells her you chose every part of it. He tells her that the apartment photograph was from the first dinner. Mackerel, 12 seats, a chef who knew him, 3 hours that started as we should get food after training. He tells her you thought he was trying to become something simpler, and that you were right and that he is still trying. He tells her that the hardest and most real thing he ever did was stay inside a life after a person who built it with him was gone. That grief has a shape and you live inside the shape, and some days the shape is the whole world, and some days it is smaller, and you go on. He tells her that her mother was the bravest person in any room she was ever in. Not because she wasn't afraid. Because she was afraid, and she chose anyway. Hana listens to all of it. Then she says, "Did you love her?" He says, "Completely." She says, "Were you worth it?" What she chose. He is quiet for a long time. Then, "I tried to be. I'm still trying." She looks at him, your eyes in his face, for a moment. Then she says, "I think she knew you would be." The photograph on the mantel. Fukushima restaurant. 12-seat counter bar. You are facing slightly away from the camera, turned toward him, your face caught in the specific expression of someone laughing at something real. He is looking at you in the photograph, not at the camera, at you. His face carries the expression it would carry for the rest of his life when he thought of you. The expression of a man who found something he did not know to look for and is still, even now, accounting for the size of what it was. You are 31 years old in the photograph. You will always be 31 years old in the photograph. The mackerel was extraordinary. The city kept moving. The gym above the convenience store is still open. Your daughter has your eyes. And every single part of it, the whole enormous, difficult, real, and costly and luminous thing, you chose it. All of it. You chose it.